Chaos.
Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. I'm your host, Sarah Jones. This is another fixture in our Minisode series where I get the chance to talk to you about your ghost stories. For this Minisode, I got to speak to a man named Ryan about a very unique experience that he had in Tempe, Arizona. Here's the Minisode. Take a listen.
Hello, it's Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. This is Sarah calling from Laughing in the Dark. How are you?
Hey, sis. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I understand you have a ghost story for me.
I do, if you want to call it that. It's not a traditional one, but
Okay.
definitely relevant.
I'm intrigued.
So, basically, story starts in Tempe, Arizona.
Okay.
I had recently graduated culinary school in Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Moved to Tempe, Arizona, with a couple Chinese friends to open up a restaurant. And I hired a gentleman to wash dishes for me. His name was Blake, and he was 26. I was 22. And he was a really nice person, still is. Kid's heart is just made of gold, you know, but was a bit strange, to say the least. Paranoid, you know, kind of socially awkward. But we became good friends through the process of him working for me.
And he worked. So now this is in a kitchen, right? This because you said you were in culinary school.
Correct. So he was in my restaurant as a dishwasher.
Okay, got it.
So he was a phenomenal musician. He actually taught me how to play guitar.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but a shit dishwasher. But he's a good person, and he worked
Okay.
hard, so I kept him around. You know.
Sure, of course.
So he, starts telling me over the weeks and months of us hanging out about how, he always used to get in trouble for the being in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess is the easiest way to sum it up, for things that weren't his fault. And I, always brushed it off of, yeah, of course,
Sure.
just someone with excuses.
Right. Uh-huh.
So one day Blake doesn't show up to work, and it's strange because he always showed up to work, which is the main reason he was still employed.
Right.
I
Doesn't
get a
do anything
call
else right, but at least he's here.
Exactly. I needed capable hands. So I get a call, and it's the Tempe, Arizona Police Department. And they said, yeah, we have somebody here who, name is Blake, and he wanted to call you.
Oh, God.
And I said, oh, come on, man. So sure enough, he got arrested. He worked at a part-time job at the Arizona State University campus bookstore. Okay.
Okay.
And this is back 2013, before, weed was recreationally legal. It had barely been medically legal there.
Okay.
He had a little bit of weed in his backpack, put it in his locker at the bookstore, and either somebody called, that was his theory, that somebody called the cops because obviously the whole world had it out for him, right?
Of course.
I think that they might have just done random locker checks or whatever. Either way, it sucks to get arrested for a tiny amount of weed that you put in your locker.
Right.
When you're
That's
not
stupid.
even a student.
Right.
Right. So his sister gets pissed off, says this is the last straw, throws him out of the house, right? So I go pick him up. I tell him, you can move into my house.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
You can keep your job,
Yeah.
but I just need you to show up and work hard.
Yeah.
No, he was staying in my living room, basically. It's a one-bedroom apartment, Tempe, Arizona. Got him an air mattress set up, did the best I could. And there was an incident where one of my bartenders forgot to cover all of the booze in my bar, right? With saran wrap at the end of the night. So I show up the next day, and fruit flies had gone into the pouring
no.
valves and contaminated probably like 15 bottles.
Oh,
right?
no.
So me being kid from Detroit doesn't really give a fuck about, nice things. It's, hey, there's still good booze in there. So we ran it through a couple coffee filters, put it into some containers, and I brought it home. Obviously, I can't sell it at the restaurant.
Right.
But you can drink it at home.
Sure.
A little extra protein from the fruit flies. Who gives a shit,
Of
right?
course. Yeah, absolutely right.
So, so weekend number 1 of Blake living in my house, he drank like 12 quarts out of the 15 quarts that I had of all different kinds of alcohol, just straight, no chasers. And I was like, this is fucking sick. I don't drink much. I mean, I'm smoking a joint as we're talking, but I don't drink much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he just starts getting blackout drunk constantly, and he starts rambling on about this story. Every time he was blackout drunk, he wouldn't make any sense except for the one story that he told me that was perfect, word for word every time, about how the devil cursed him when he was a child.
Oh.
Right? So after, 5 nights of him being like blackout drunk, I poured out all of the booze in my apartment. He still managed to get his hands on more. And it got to a point where, I thought he was going to die. So I, told him, no more drinking, no more smoking. Like, you want to stay here and keep your job, you need to be sober because you're going to fucking die soon.
Right.
But of the nights that he was shit-faced, he never made any sense about anything. But he told me that exact same story, word for word, every single night. And so it got a little bit like, you hear something enough, you start to believe it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, it got your gears turning, I'm sure.
Yep, exactly. So, and now the first week of him being sober, my apartment was like a fucking hot zone. It was insane. My cat was going nuts. I came out of the shower one morning. I was the only one there, and I saw a kitchen chair with no wheels slide 3 or 4 feet across the ground.
Oh, shit.
Right? Like somebody was mad at me, like it came at me,
Mm-hmm.
And my whole theory at this point, now that I've thought it over for a couple of years, is that whatever it was that was cursing him was doing so because he was a weak person because of the drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing was pissed off at me for trying to get him better.
Oh, because it needed him as a vessel.
Exactly. And needed him weak, is my theory, right?
Yeah.
I'm not much of a religious person, but I am also not oblivious. I'll pay attention.
Right.
So my cat's going nuts. I see this chair slide across the room. Now, for those couple nights that first week, he had these terrible, terrible nightmares. At least I thought they were nightmares. He was actually awake and arguing with this entity that had cursed him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I just hear like these kind of moans and this yelling, and I hear Blake fucking screaming at somebody. So I peek around the corner, like expecting to go into the living room, find him asleep, and wake him up and be like, dude, shut up, right?
Right.
This motherfucker is standing in the middle of my living room, looking directly at the wall, pointing at something that he always referred to as, he would just like be rambling, and then he would stop and go, it's you. And then he would start fucking arguing with this entity. And I swear I heard like growls and demonic voices, like shit got real.
Like not coming from
like,
him, like coming from nowhere?
Not coming from him.
Yeah,
not coming from him. Like he was yelling at something and he would stop, and then you would just hear these like eerie noises. And it's like he was listening. He could like comprehend what this thing was fucking saying to him. All I could hear was like growls, and what I could only explain is just like evil sounds, right?
What the fuck? Like, so it almost sounded like an
animal,
almost like a
kind of.
Because you say growls, like I'm trying to like. I mean, obviously, it sounds like a demon, basically. But was it speaking in tongues? Like, was it like Latin, or was it just like an animal?
There's one thing that I can compare it to that you might be able to be like, okay, got you. Have you ever seen the movie 300?
No, I haven't. That's like such a famous movie that I've never seen. I'm terrible with movies.
There's this little hobbit hunchback guy in the movie called Ephialtes. I won't spoil the movie for you because it is a great one. But long story short, there's a part where he's screaming at the king as the king is walking away, and he's making these like dark, like kind of growls and just kind of underworld sounding shit. That's what it was like.
I'm sure there are listeners. I'm sure every listener is like, yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, when he's yelling at Leonidas when he's walking away, and he's like, rah, and it's like, that's what I was fucking hearing. But it wasn't, loud enough to where it was like ear piercing, but you could just hear it.
Make
right?
it out. Interesting.
So Blake
So you're shitting your pants at this point.
No, I'm super intrigued.
Interesting.
In my bedroom, I've never really been fearful of the supernatural. When I was 10 years old and grew up in Detroit, Michigan, my girlfriend got killed when I was walking her home when I was 10.
I'm sorry.
And no, it's okay. It's one of those things that shapes you as a person. If you look at it from the right perspective, I was very angry for a couple of years, yes. But going through that kind of deepens my awareness of things, if that makes any sense.
Like so you experienced her, you mean?
Yeah, well, it was just, I guess you could say that.
You're familiar with the paranormal for better and for worse, is basically.
Correct. Not so much fearful of it, more just intrigued by it.
That's exactly how I am, dude. By the way, that's exactly how I am. Because for the main episodes of this show, when I go to haunted places with comedians, because people ask me that all the time. They're like, "Aren't you scared?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fascinated. Like I want to know what's out there. I'm interested."
If you ever do a haunted house trip in Las Vegas, Nevada, I am down as fuck.
Well, I only do episodes with comedians, main episodes, but I actually am looking in Las Vegas, so I'll be out in Vegas. If not for season 3, then for season 4. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so I don't like to be the guy without answers. So I was like, I can finally get some answers about something that we don't know whether or not it's real.
Right, exactly. Yes.
So I was just intrigued.
Right.
So now Blake starts taking breaks from the restaurant to go to this church that was kind of next door / kitty corner from my restaurant, which I didn't have a problem with. After the first day, I went looking for him, and I seen him walking out of the church, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I've just been going here. It makes me feel better." And he's 5 or 6 days sober at this point.
What kind of church was it?
Just a regular Christian church.
Okay.
He brings me there one day. Again, I'm still not a very religious person. I would consider myself more of a theologist. I like to study all religions and cherry pick the parts that I like from each one.
Yeah.
Or at least the parts that make sense to me. So he brings me to this church and he starts explaining to me about how God's been reaching out to him and all this shit. And I'm like, yo, we got fucking 200 people coming in tonight. I need you prepping if there's no dishes, right?
Yeah. I'm like, this is cute, but get your shit
brushing
together.
Brushing it off.
Right.
Now, so he starts going to this church every day and he is becoming healthy and less paranoid. Now, the paranoid part I'll explain quick. As an example, it's one of the things that set me over the top with him. We went to my restaurant on a Sunday because it was closed and I didn't have cable at home because I was never there. There's no reason to watch Detroit Red Wings hockey game.
Mm-hmm.
The police had pulled somebody over for a traffic stop down the street. And as soon as we got into my restaurant, he ran into the bathroom and flushed all my weed down the toilet because he said the police were coming. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, come on, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So that was part of the paranoia shit that's how he was all the time.
Yeah.
And it drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Because he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. I mean, you can this is a kid who got arrested for that little bit of weed in his locker, I guess. But yeah, I would be pissed too.
Correct. So, So we fast forward a couple weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Blake's 20 pounds heavier, eating regular meals, got color back in his face. Like he looks good and he looks like a healthy person again.
Mm-hmm.
His mind is becoming more healthy, and we're sitting in my living room playing this Cambodian dice gambling game that one of my sous chefs taught me because it was an Asian restaurant. And, we're just betting dollars, kind of passing the time. And he tells me this lightning story, the demon cursing him story again, which goes as follows. When he was a child, he was playing in a rainstorm. He's probably 5 or 6 years old. And he looked up at the sky and he said, "By the powers of the devil, I summon you to me." And he got struck by lightning, like 3 feet in front of him, and knocked on his ass. Mm-hmm. And he said, ever since that moment, he started getting trouble in school. He was cursed. Wrong place at the wrong time. Got a car stolen from him, trying to buy drugs somewhere when he was like 16. Just all this crazy shit. And he blamed it all on that moment that he summoned the devil.
Yeah.
Right? So all the times when he was drunk and rambling and told me that story, I'm thinking, yeah, sure you did. Right?
Right. Yeah, like a 5-year-old is going to summon the devil. Where did he
correct.
hear that
I'm
from?
like, no fucking way in hell. Dude.
Right.
No way. I just thought it was a piss poor excuse for him being a dumbass.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, for the first time of him being sober and telling me this story, he tells me the demon cursing him story one more time. And I brush it off one more time. 15 seconds later, maybe less than 15 seconds later, I hear a fucking explosion. Boom! My whole fucking apartment building's rattling. I'm on the second floor, right? Building shaking, lights are flashing. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Mm-hmm. But I happened to be looking out the sliding glass door, and what I saw was a bolt of lightning hit the parking lot directly outside my sliding glass door.
Like right as he was telling the story?
15 seconds after, maybe less than 15 seconds after. Okay.
Whoa.
So, and I saw it. I got goosebumps right now as I'm telling you this, because it was real. Yeah. The building was shaking. That shit is real. There are 300 plus apartments in this complex, one on top of the other. So it's spread out as a wide place. It's not a tall complex. So it could have struck down in front of any apartment in the entire building, but it didn't. I saw it directly in front of mine. We go outside. I still have photographs of the pavement somewhere. The pavement was a giant chunk missing, huge burn mark. And this is Tempe, Arizona, where it hadn't rained in 2 months. Not a cloud in the sky. Blue skies all the way across, right? Mm-hmm. No reason for that. So from what we would consider scientific standpoint from the weather, there is no explanation in hell for where that lightning bolt came from. Now,
or the only explanation is in hell.
Is that there was something supernatural going on.
Yeah.
Because I've had some time to look back on it, and the answer came to me very quickly after he left Arizona. That lightning bolt was like, let's call it from the heavens instead of the hells, and it released him.
Oh, interesting.
From his curse, from his shitty luck. Yeah. He had been going to church every day for 5 weeks at this point. There was something so strange about that lightning bolt. It felt like peaceful.
Interesting.
I don't know how to explain that part of it. But here's how the rest of the story goes. So about a week later, Blake doing better than he ever has. He's playing like paid gigs at bars, playing his music, working at my restaurant, working at a landscaping place in the morning, just hustling, being a functional human. Mm-hmm. He tells me about a week later, after the lightning bolt, I'm moving to California. And I said, why? And he says, well, I talked to, my mom and she's going to let me stay there for a while because something deep in my heart tells me I need to go to California. That's where my destiny is. And I said, okay, if it's best for you, then you got to do what you got to do, So Blake moves to California, starts attending a church out there, obviously, because he's big into church at this point. Meets a girl at church, and she's now his wife. Her name is Destiny.
Oh, wow.
Right? Can't
Yeah.
make this shit up, Sarah. You cannot.
Yeah.
This is 100% true. I was at the wedding as a groomsman. I wish we could call Blake right now just to get him on the phone for this. So his wife's name is Destiny. Blake now has a 6-figure income. He owns his own real estate photography business, and this is all since maybe 2015 or 16 that he started doing the photography.
Oh my God. So this has been recent, like over the last 4 or 5 years that this has all come together for him.
Yeah. I mean, he left Arizona. He left my restaurant in early 2015.
Oh my God.
I was at their wedding in December of 2016.
Wow. And so he this completely turned around for him.
Yes, ma'am. Correct. Like his entire life from 5 or 6 years old when he summoned the devil, which I now believe is actually kind of fucking true, until he was 26 years old, working as a dishwasher in my restaurant. When I was 22, I'm fresh out of school. It was my first business. So I was a little preoccupied, but I'm a good person. He's my brother. I just wanted to help him not kill himself, not drink himself to death. I'd seen that shit too much growing up.
Sure. Yeah.
So he's got a 6-figure income now, runs his own real estate photography business. He's been published in most of the most luxurious real estate magazines internationally, right? We're talking, he does photographs for celebrities' homes that he's trying to sell.
Is he out here in LA?
He's in LA.
Oh,
he's
wow.
doing homes that are worth $15 to $30 million. I mean, just giant cliff, beachside villas, like dope ass houses.
You know what's crazy? I work for a locations agency where we represent thousands of homes all over LA, all over Southern California for films and TV. I bet you our stories come together a little bit here. I bet you I have spoken to homeowners and we represent homes that he has sold.
Probably. Well, he does the photography for,
or has done the
contracted to the real estate agents.
Okay.
So he does the photography for the real estate agents.
Funny.
So you may or may not have met it.
Well, yeah. That's wild. Well, that is awesome. This might be one of the coolest minisodes we've ever done on the show, because what's so cool is it's an uplifting. Well, yeah, thank you. It's like an uplifting story. Yet. Oh shit, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay. I feel like I've been talking too much. I want you to get your 2 cents in.
Oh, no, not at all.
So now Blake, you can look him up on Instagram if you want. It's Blake Cameron Photography, and it's all his homes. Now, him and his wife had a child about 2 years ago. Her name is Eden. Garden of Eden.
Oh my God! Of course,
yeah. Heaven, right? Beautiful family. They're like some of my favorite people. There's not enough people like them anymore. No offense to anyone, but a little too religious for my take. But it's fucking worked for them, because his wife Destiny has a very, very rare blood disease.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what it's called, and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But it's very rare. She has to get blood treatments and transfusions regularly. They just did 30 days in Dallas because they were seeing a specialist, and they were in the hospital the whole time. And Blake is there 100%. He's the best dad and a better husband. He's a fucking phenomenal guy. I love him.
That's awesome.
Now, when they were getting ready to have the baby, they didn't want any medical interference, let's call it. And the doctor says there is 0% chance, 0 cases ever recorded where a mother with your illness has a child with 0 medical interference and both parties live. Okay.
Oh my
So they're
God.
saying you're going to die or your baby is going to die.
Yeah.
And Blake and Destiny said, fuck you. This shit is in God's hands. You're going to be there to take the baby out of her, and you're not going to fucking touch her other than that. This is in God's hands.
Mm-hmm.
They're still here.
Oh my God. That is just crazy. That's crazy. And that's awesome.
It is. And it's their faith was like unbroken. You know, when I told him that I was going to be sharing this story, possibly, he texted me back. Here, I'll read the text messages to you, just so you can see.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, he said, damn, bro, it brings back a lot of memories and not necessarily good ones. And then I was like, yeah, it's Laughing in the Dark with Sarah Jones, you know. And he says, crazy stuff, man. He goes, I'm not really sure how that experience and being where I am today didn't urge you to want to know more about Jesus, man. The peace I carry now is solely because of my relationship with him. I love you, brother. How are things on your end? And then we had a nice conversation. But it's still just that faith that he has.
And honestly,
it's real.
I can
it's real to him.
But I can see where he's coming from. I mean, how is it that, and I'm not a super religious person myself. In fact, I relate to what you said, that I kind of pick and choose what feels right to me, and I kind of write my own path for that. But yeah. I mean, you heard these demonic sounds. It sounds like you are convinced that there is something there. There is something
I'm 100%.
there. Uh-huh. Yeah. So just because you don't go to church, or just because you don't call it, you know, you don't take the entire Bible with you, there's clearly something here for you.
Yep. And whether it's God and the devil, whether it's, let's call it ancient alien creator, however the whole thing got started, who's ever responsible for putting us here, and who's ever looking out for us occasionally, there is definitely something beyond human comprehension and explanation for everything that I experienced.
Thanks so much for calling, Ryan. This was a really eye-opening story. If you have a ghost story of your own, we want to hear from you. Email us at litdarkpodcast@gmail.com and tell us your story. We may want to feature you on the show. As always, thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time right here on Laughing in the Dark. Laughing in the Dark is brought to you in part by Heck Yeah Studio. Heck Yeah Studio is a creative effort working with people to create meaningful things. At Heck Yeah Studio, they work with clients to turn their ideas or existing brands into real or better versions. Heck Yeah Studio is the place to go for custom illustration for a full range of branding services, like killer logos, great colors and typography, and fun illustrations for pins, signs, prints, shirts, vehicles, posters, or anything you can imagine. At Heck Yeah Studio, they work with love. Their dream client is someone who is passionate about what they do. At Laughing in the Dark, Heck Yeah Studio has designed our logo, all of our merch, and any posters or stickers that we have. I am so proud and lucky to work with such an awesome company, and I could not recommend them higher.
Studios.